Look at the hole. It is barely wide enough for a man's shoulders. It is black inside. You cannot see more than a foot in. There is no sound coming from it. A soldier kneels at the edge, sets down his rifle, removes his helmet, clips a flashlight to his hand, draws a pistol, and goes in head first, alone. That image has been in Vietnam footage, documentaries, and photographs for decades. Most people who see it assume the danger was obvious. He goes in, something shoots at him, he shoots back, he comes out. That is not what happened. The tunnel was not just a hiding place. It was built to kill the person looking for it. And the soldier going in knew that before he moved. The common assumption about tunnel rats is that the role was crude, that it was a blunt instrument used by commanders who had no better option or who did not particularly care what happened to the soldiers they sent in. That version of the story is cleaner and easier to be angry about. It is also wrong. The tunnel rat system was not random. It was a response to a specific tactical failure that had already cost weeks of effort and produced almost nothing. Before tunnel rats became a recognized method, the US military had already tried the obvious solutions. They pumped CS gas into tunnel entrances. They flooded tunnels with water. They threw grenades into the openings and waited. They called in airstrikes on known tunnel zones. None of it worked. The tunnels kept functioning. The enemy kept using them, and every failed attempt made the problem clearer. The tunnels could not be beaten from the outside. The reason for that is architectural. This was not a network of foxholes. The Cu Chi tunnel system alone stretched over 250 kilometers beneath the Vietnamese jungle and farmland, running on multiple levels, some of them 6, 9, or 12 meters underground. It had taken years to build. The first sections were dug during the war against French colonial forces in the late 1940s. By the time American forces arrived in significant numbers in the mid-1960s, the network had been expanded, reinforced, and engineered with a sophistication that nobody on the surface fully understood until soldiers started going inside. The tunnels were not straight. That was the first deliberate design decision. They were built with regular bends and angled turns, specifically to stop blast waves from traveling far. A grenade or artillery concussion that entered one section would lose almost all of its energy within 2 or 3 turns. The shockwave simply could not follow the corners. Water traps reinforced this. At regular intervals, tunnel sections dipped into U-shaped bends flooded with groundwater. Gas pumped into one entrance would reach the first water trap and stop. It had nowhere to go. The water absorbed it. The sections beyond the trap remained breathable. Ventilation shafts were narrow, angled, and hidden at the surface under vegetation or carefully packed soil. Trapdoors were sealed with clay, compressed tightly enough to absorb chemical traces, making detection by smell or sensor nearly impossible from above. What the surface observer could not see was that the tunnels were not empty corridors. They were a functioning underground system. There were kitchens with chimneys engineered to channel smoke horizontally through the earth before releasing it at dispersed surface points, making cooking fires nearly undetectable from above. There were field hospitals stocked with basic surgical equipment and medicines. There were weapons workshops where rifles and ammunition were repaired and manufactured. There were command rooms with maps, communications equipment, and planning materials. There were food stores, sleeping areas, and meeting rooms. Entire Viet Cong units lived, planned, ate, slept, and operated from underground for weeks at a time without surfacing. The tunnels were not a retreat. They were a base. When gas failed to clear them, it dispersed around the bends and stopped at the water traps. When the tunnels were flooded, the drainage systems built into the lower sections meant the process took far too long to be operationally practical. When grenades were thrown in, they cleared the first chamber and maybe the first turn. The Viet Cong simply moved deeper and waited. When airstrikes were called in on known tunnel zones, the sections directly beneath the bombs collapsed. The sections 5 meters to either side survived intact. And because the systems had multiple entrances and exits dispersed across hundreds of meters of jungle and farmland, destroying one opening changed almost nothing. The network would be re-entered from a different point within hours. In some cases, within minutes. The intelligence problem made it worse. Documents, maps, communications records, weapons production logs, supply manifests, all of it was stored underground, Bombing a tunnel section destroyed everything inside it. Flooding, it destroyed everything inside it. The only way to recover what the tunnels contained, and to understand the scope of what the enemy had built, was to send someone in to look. That required a human being. It required one who could fit inside the passages, move through them quietly, identify what was there, and come back out. A bomb cannot read a map. A gas canister cannot photograph a command room. A grenade cannot carry documents to the surface. The tunnel rat role did not begin as a formal program. It grew from individual decisions made by individual soldiers in the field. When a tunnel entrance was found, and the standard methods failed or were unavailable, someone had to decide what to do next. Some soldiers volunteered. They were often, though not always, smaller and shorter in build, not because the army selected for size, but because the tunnels made size a practical survival factor. A larger soldier risked getting stuck. In a tunnel designed to be barely passable for a Vietnamese fighter, an American soldier of average or above average build had almost no margin. Small became an advantage for one of the few times in military service. The kit was stripped to almost nothing: a .38 or .45 caliber pistol, a military flashlight, a knife, sometimes a bayonet. That was it. No rifle. The barrel was too long to turn around in a passage less than a meter wide, and raising it to aim in a space with a ceiling less than a meter above the floor was nearly impossible. No radio. It created noise that could be heard before the soldier knew there was anyone to hear it, and the bulk was unworkable in the confined space. No body armor. Too rigid, too bulky, too likely to trap a soldier in a narrow section. No backup inside the tunnel. The soldier at the entrance could wait, could listen, could pull the rope tied to the tunnel rat's ankle if the signal stopped coming, but they could not follow. One person went in. One person dealt with whatever was there. What waited inside was not always another soldier. The Viet Cong had spent years thinking about what would happen when someone entered their tunnels. They had prepared for it, not just with armed fighters waiting in the dark, though that happened, but with an entire layer of environmental threat designed to work without anyone present to operate it. The tunnel itself was weaponized. Punji stake traps were built into floor sections, covered with thin material that would hold under careful footsteps but collapse under the weight of a crawling soldier who shifted his balance. Scorpions were tied to strings and suspended at face height in the darkness, invisible until the flashlight beam hit them at close range. Venomous snakes, cobras and bamboo vipers, both native to the region and both capable of a lethal bite, were deliberately placed in tunnel sections and left. They did not need to be aimed. They needed only to be there. A soldier crawling forward in near darkness, focused on the ground in front of him, could push his hand into a coiled snake before the flashlight reached it. Grenade traps were rigged to tripwires stretched across the tunnel at ankle height. In complete darkness, moving slowly, a tunnel rat could feel the wire against his boot before he saw it, or he could not. Trapdoors were built into the floor above pits. Some pits were empty. Some had stakes. Some had water. The variation was part of the design. If a soldier learned to test the floor before every step, the testing itself slowed him down and raised his stress level. That was also the point. And sometimes there was a fighter, a Viet Cong soldier trained to wait silently in a side chamber, pressed against the wall, making no sound, letting the tunnel rat pass, then moving into the corridor behind him. In the confined space, with the flashlight aimed forward, the soldier behind you was invisible until he chose not to be. The psychological engineering of the tunnel environment was not accidental. It was the product of years of thinking about how to destroy the effectiveness of anyone who entered. The flashlight was the central tactical problem of tunnel rat work. Without it, movement was nearly impossible. A tripwire invisible at 6 inches became a death sentence in total darkness. The floor traps, the snakes, the sudden changes in tunnel direction, none of it was survivable without light. But the flashlight created its own threat. In a pitch-black tunnel, a moving light source is visible from a distance far greater than the light itself illuminates. A tunnel rat with his flashlight on could be seen from 50 meters away in the right conditions. He could see maybe 4 or 5 meters ahead. The gap between what he revealed and what he could see was the gap that got soldiers killed. Tunnel rats adapted. They learned to hold the flashlight away from the body and to the side, so that a shot aimed at the light had a chance of missing the person holding it. They learned to switch it off at every bend, to sit in total darkness and listen for breathing, for movement, for the particular quality of silence that meant something was waiting. They learned to move in short stages, advance, stop, listen, advance again. They learned to feel the floor with their hand before putting weight on it. They learned to move the hand at face height through the darkness before crawling forward. Not because it would stop a coiled snake in every case, but because sometimes it did. The work demanded a level of sustained sensory attention that normal combat did not. Every decision was made with incomplete information. Every meter of tunnel was a question that could not be answered until the answer was already happening. The psychological consequences were severe and lasting. Tunnel rats reported hypervigilance that persisted long after they came back to the surface. Sounds that would not register for most soldiers, a branch moving, a distant vehicle, someone speaking too loudly in a base camp, triggered acute physical responses. The nervous system had been trained to treat every unexpected input as a potential lethal threat, and it did not easily untrain. Claustrophobic responses appeared in men who had never experienced them before. Some reported that in closed spaces they had previously been comfortable in, vehicles, small rooms, bunks in tight quarters, became sources of sustained anxiety after extended tunnel rat duty. Some soldiers found that the hyper-awareness required underground became so thoroughly embedded that surface combat felt wrong. Too much open space, too many variables at once, too loud. The tunnel had imposed a particular kind of attention, narrow, close, controlled, quiet, and regular infantry operations violated every condition that attention depended on. A handful of tunnel rats became extraordinarily effective at the work. They developed an almost mechanical calm under conditions that broke other soldiers. They kept volunteering. They went back in after coming out. Some of them did it dozens of times over the course of their deployment. The adaptation that made them survivable underground made them difficult to reintegrate into everything else. The role was never made mandatory. Every tunnel rat was a volunteer. That fact sits differently when you understand what they were volunteering for. It was not an assignment where the danger was abstract or distant. The danger was the floor beneath you, the air in front of your face, the darkness half a meter past your flashlight beam. It was immediate and total, and entirely without backup. The soldiers who kept going back were not unaware of what waited inside. They were fully aware. That is what makes the record of their service as strange and specific as the tunnels themselves. The Cu Chi tunnels still exist today. Sections of them have been preserved and opened to tourists. The passages were widened for the purpose, made larger than the originals, to allow visitors to move through them without the kind of physical compression the wartime tunnels imposed. Most visitors who enter the widened tourist sections last about 30 seconds before they want to turn around. The ceiling presses down, the walls close in, the air thickens, and those sections are bigger than the real ones were. The original tunnels were smaller, the soldiers who cleared them were smaller, the kit they carried fit in one hand, and the darkness inside was complete. The soldier at the entrance with the pistol and the flashlight was not being discarded. He was not evidence of indifference or desperation or poor command decisions. He was the answer to a system that had been built over 2 decades specifically to defeat every other answer. The bombs failed. The gas failed. The water failed. The grenades cleared the first room and nothing else. What remained, after everything else had been tried and had come up short, was a person, small enough to fit, willing enough to go, aware enough to move slowly. The tunnel was the weapon. It had been designed, refined, and stocked with the specific purpose of destroying anyone who entered. The kit was not inadequate. A rifle would not have fit. A radio would have given away the position before the first corner. The pistol and the flashlight were not a compromise. They were everything that the space allowed. And the only reason the mission was possible at all was that the person carrying them chose to go in anyway.